everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing really well today, and thank you so much for still being here and still subscribing, and that number's going up pretty fast, and that's pretty cool. So thanks so much to everyone new that's here. Today is a slightly different video. I don't know, I just felt cool to do this because I feel like a lot of my community that follow me on here are very similar to me in the respect that I love to learn about things within this sort of sector, within the self-development sector. And one of the best ways I have learned and educated myself on all these topics is through podcasts. So if you've never heard of podcasts, they are basically episodes of people talking about certain topics, usually with special guests, and you can get podcasts that are part of a series, and you know, people that you really like celebrities or influencers have their own podcasts as well, so you can listen to them as sort of a part of a series, which is quite interesting and quite fun. And the podcast app is mostly free, and most podcasts are free. The ones I mention next are free, but you can get some podcasts that are paid, but they're on different platforms. I use the Apple Podcast app. I know you can get the Android podcast app as well, which is free, but things like Spotify you have to pay for. There is some podcasts on there, and also other apps like Luminary, or people might decide to do them more independently through a website, but the ones I do mention are free, and most are free, and there are some great ones that are available to you for free as well. So I discovered podcasts probably about 3 to 4 years ago, and it wasn't a very big thing back then, I believe anyway. I think I found it through actually one of the podcasts I'm going to mention, the Minimalists, and I followed them for a long time, and they launched a podcast, so I was like, let's try this, let's see what it's about. And I really did love the concept of podcasts. Sometimes I don't always want to listen to music. Sometimes I want to educate myself but not read a book. Maybe I want to, you know, listen to something whilst I'm doing something else. And in the job that I was previously in, a lot of it was walking around and doing very mundane tasks, so I could easily listen to something whilst doing that, and it actually helped me work a lot better, sometimes even better than music, which is strange because you think someone talking at you will make you lose focus, but it was the opposite for me. So that's when I discovered them, and I've been listening to podcasts ever since. Many different ones have come in and out of my life, but these are the ones that I wanted to talk about today. So these are my top 5 spirituality, self-development and wellness podcasts that I can highly recommend, and I'll talk a little bit about them as we proceed. Okay, so the first podcast is Happy Place by Fern Cotton. I love Fern Cotton. I've been following her for years. Many people know her from being a TV presenter or a radio presenter, but I do really love the way she talks. I find it really friendly and warm, so I love listening to her doing anything. So this podcast is based around health, environmentalism. She gets a lot of different guest speakers on the platform to talk about different topics, but they're mainly based around the self-development and wellness and environmentalism sort of area, but she does focus quite heavily on mental health as well. So if you've ever followed her journey, you will know she had some quite difficult mental health struggles, and she has wrote many books about it as well, and I do love her books. Highly recommend reading them if you do like this podcast. But yeah, so it's called Happy Place, and it is pretty self-explanatory. It talks a lot about a lot of things that, you know, help boost your happiness, help you understand yourself and reconnect with yourself, and how to manage mental health struggles and things like that. So really do enjoy it, and I just love the way she talks in conversations and how it becomes a really nice flow to listen to, because I feel like that's her sort of personality. The second podcast I want to mention is Saturn Returns by Kaye Dunlop. If you don't know who Kaye is, she was a big star on the hit reality TV show Made in Chelsea. Very British, very posh. Oh, she's moved on from that now, but that's how a lot of people know her. But she's moved into this very different sector of spirituality and sort of esoterical things. This is more of like a bit of a witchy, esoterical podcast. So if you're not into that, you might not really enjoy this podcast too much. But I do love the way Kaye talks to people, and it's very similar to Fern in the respect that she's very flowing with conversation. So it can become a really interesting, in-depth conversation between her and her special guest. But also I find her really funny. Her laugh is very contagious, and yeah, she does have some really quite funny conversations with people, but on very serious topics, so it does give that sort of balance, which is nice. But yeah, this podcast, like I said, covers a lot of esoterical subjects, so things like intuition, manifestation and astrology. It's quite heavily influenced by astrology actually, because she started this podcast because of her Saturn returns, which she goes into detail on the podcast, so I won't go into it too much because you might not be interested. But it is this astrological sort of time of your life that you can go through sort of in your late 30s. So it does cover a lot of things like that, but also sort of self-expression and like reconnecting with yourself and sort of learning to trust the universe. So yeah, she talks about a personal journey about finding herself and going through tough times. So it just gives a bit of insight into other people's lives and how they have overcome struggles and things like that, with the help of, you know, esoterical elements like astrology, moon cycles and all of that sort of stuff. So if you're into witchy things like me, then you'll probably love this podcast. It's very calming vibe as well, so highly recommend. The third podcast I want to mention here is The Minimalists, and I feel like this is the podcast that will probably resonate with most of you the most, because it is based around minimalism and simple living, which is what I mainly share on here. If you don't know who they are, they came out with a Netflix documentary called Minimalism. They've got 2 now actually, I believe. So it covers many aspects of minimalist living and slow living, from decluttering to letting go and unlearning habits. But there's also some other elements in there that aren't necessarily related to minimalism and slow living directly, but more sort of the outcome of things. So things like mental health or finding your passions, and even like enjoying what matters. I do love these guys. I love their conversations. I think they've both got some great brains and wisdom on them, so I always come away from every episode feeling like I've learned something new. It also helps me sort of go back to my roots of slow living and minimalism. If I ever feel like I've lost my limbo with the whole minimalist and slow living lifestyle, which can sometimes happen in this society, I do go and listen to one of their podcasts, because they do make me remember why I decided to choose this lifestyle and its benefits. So yeah, highly recommend this podcast. If you're interested in my channel in general, you'll probably enjoy this sort of content. But they have got also a paid version on their Patreon, but they do still upload free versions. So you can easily do one or the other. You do get a lot more content on the Patreon version, but the free version is just as good, and you still get some great insight and inspiration from them, from their free podcast. The fourth podcast I want to mention is the Happy Pear podcast. So this is run by Dave and Stephen, who are the Happy Pear duo. They've got a very health and wellness focused background. They're both vegan, and they've come out with many recipe books and things about whole foods and, you know, diet and things like that. So it is a very health focused podcast, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily all about eating well. It's about many other things in general. So it's like natural lifestyle, healthy lifestyle. They get a lot of people on there talking about mental health. Again, that's a recurring theme in a lot of these podcasts. And also getting back out into nature and sort of reconnecting with that lost part of ourselves. They can have really deep conversations, but I do think they're both still very easy to listen to, and there is some humour in there, which is great as well. And they do get some really quite famous and prestigious guests on there as well, so it's really interesting to hear these people's like perspective on things sort of firsthand live. So yeah, I really enjoy this podcast. It's something that I've recently discovered, but their podcasts are really quite nice and lengthy as well, so they're great for road trips, or like, I don't know, if you're doing some sort of task that's taking a long time, you can really get invested in something like this. So that's really good. The fifth and final podcast that I want to talk about is Feel Better, Live Well by Rangan Chatterjee. So Rangan is actually an ex-doctor. I don't know if he is still a doctor, but he's definitely, you know, been through that sort of process of becoming a doctor. So it's still very health focused, and they talk a lot about sort of chronic health issues, how to heal yourself more holistically. He has taken a bit of a different route now, and he is more holistic health, natural health, rather than just talking about, you know, what doctors might say to you. So he sort of gives a perspective on both, which is really nice. And he gets some great guests on there talking about, you know, how they've managed to heal or, you know, manage their symptoms of chronic health issues, you know, maybe why we are dealing with these issues in this current society and world. So yeah, it's very health focused, physical health, mental health, just general wellness. I really love listening to him because he's got some great ideas and also some great knowledge on a lot of these different topics. So I do always come away feeling like I've really learnt something new, so that's really interesting. And he's really good with his choice of guests as well. He does get a mix of guests. It's not just all science-based. He gets a lot of people talking about, you know, mindset and things like that as well. So it's a really good all-rounder podcast, and they get into some really deep conversations, so I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy this one. If you're into maybe getting back to your roots, or, you know, having some lifestyle changes, I'd recommend this podcast. And yeah, like before, they're very lengthy podcasts, most of them, so you can really get into them, you know, for a road trip, or, you know, an extra long task, or a day at work. You can really invest your time in them and learn quite a lot. So that's all for today's video. I know it's slightly different, but it's just something I wanted to share. If you feel like you enjoyed this content, please do leave a comment or let me know, and I can make some more videos like this in the future. I'd love to talk about maybe books that I've read that have really helped me on my journey. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do let me know. I do need your feedback, so yeah, please do not feel afraid to drop a comment or send me a message. I'd love to hear your feedback. But apart from that, thanks so much. I hope that you enjoy these podcasts. If you decide to listen to them or download the app, you will really enjoy it and you won't regret it, so highly recommend. But yeah, apart from that, so thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.
And it's kinda strange, don't even know your name.